what's everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computing needs. Whether you need a custom computer for gaming, streaming, creative, music, business, they will build the best PC for you. Get $100 off your entire bill. Use code CDPOD at Dark Fusion Systems. The link show the podcast below. Thank you guys. Also be sure to hit subscribe on this podcast because don't miss out on any episodes. We got a lot coming. Now let's go to our feature presentation. In 2022, we brought on Indy, the bassist from Windwaker, to talk about their debut album, Love Language. Now, it's 2024. Windwaker's got a brand new album called HYPERVIOLENCE coming out on July 12th. And instead of Indy, we get the lead singer, Liam, to come to the podcast. We talk about Liam's return to Windwaker. We talk about all the influences that come in here from electronic, pop, metal, metalcore, post-hardcore, and hip-hop, and how it all works together on this track. And we have some fun ideas for their live show coming to the U.S. with North Lane. So make sure you go and check that out. But before you do that, enjoy this episode and get in a Windwaker with us. Are you guys ready? Let's go! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, you know every time we bring an Australian band to the podcast, you know it's going to be high quality, great music, and this band has already been on the podcast before. Back in 2022, when the debut album Love Language dropped, the bassist Indy was with us, but now with a brand new album called HYPERVIOLENCE coming out on July 12th, and with the band coming over to the US for the first time in support of North Lane, you're going to get a chance to see them, get the album in your hands and feel it and feel the power and really get behind it, especially with this man right here. So please welcome Liam from the band Windwaker, the podcast. So Liam, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
Dude, I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I'm glad we're finally, because hey, I remember, like I said, I had Indy on the first time 2 years ago, been following the band ever since, and I'm like, oh, we get to do this again. There's a new album. Of course I got to bring you guys on. Of course we got to talk about it. And now I get someone completely different, and I know it's going to be just as good. So, yeah.
Cool. Yes, we're going to have a good time.
Oh, we're going to have a fantastic time. And first question I kind of want to ask you is because I remember the last time, especially with the intro or the first album, Love Language, you weren't the lead singer on it at that time, and now you are. So What was that like joining Windwaker when you did, and now coming to the fold with a brand new album coming out, and then, of course, touring and now being able to come over and tour the U.S. for the first time? So, like, what was the journey of you getting into Windwaker and where you guys are today?
Yeah. All right. I'll give it like a brief summary of my history with Windwaker because it is quite long. But I'll give you the cliff notes. Okay. So I first met Windwaker about 10 years ago, and they came from this small country town, rural town called Wagga Wagga, and they moved down to where I live, which is Melbourne. Or Melbourne, as Americans I hear like to call it.
Yeah, we have bad accents with that.
It's fine. So I met them when they first moved away from their home and wanted to try and make this band Windwaker work. And I was just kind of doing my own thing at the time. I was writing a lot of raps and hip hop beats and all this sort of stuff. I was fully deep into that, but an ex-partner of mine was playing in a band and a rock band, and they were supporting Windwaker, and that's how I got to meet them. And then, days passed. They actually kicked out their guitarist, and I joined the band as a guitarist and backing vocalist for a number of years in the very early stages of Windwaker. Fast forward to about 2019, and we had put out our EP Empire. My vocals and guitar playing's all over that record. And I had decided to take a step back because I was wanting to focus on some other musical things, musical projects, I should say. And that was around the time in which we were signing to Fearless and getting the sort of starting ideas of Love Language. So my involvement in Love Language was really more to do with if you hear any of the gang like the choir vocals or the gang vocals, that I'm in that. That was pretty much the extent of my exposure on Love Language. But fast forward to 2022, that album releases. They've gone on a couple tours, headlining around Australia, and I'm watching from afar, watching from the outside in, and one afternoon I get a phone call from Indy, who you spoke to last time on this show, and yeah, he asked me if I wanted to audition to be the new lead singer, and I knew that I was able to sort of sing a little bit in Will's range, just due to the nature of doing like backing vocals and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But my biggest, uh, I guess, concern or worry going into it was how am I going to learn how to scream in such a short period of time? Because at that point, it was maybe about September. We had a tour in November, the first tour that I would embark on as the singer, to basically get myself show ready. So I had auditioned with Beautiful and Superstitious Fantasy. Those were the two songs they'd asked me to come in and record like a demo tape of. And then that was pretty much it from there. They were like, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense. We've already got history, we've got chemistry of
Hmm.
songwriting together. It makes a lot of sense to bring Liam back. So yeah, from there we basically started writing immediately because we needed to have a single to come out for this tour that was happening at 2-3 months from
Hmm.
then at that point. And we were supporting Enter Shikari, and we were doing a regional country town sort of tour of with supporting North Lane. So we put together a few songs, submitted them to the label, and what ended up happening from that was the single Left in the Dark, which was the first single that had come out with my vocals on it. And that came out the day of the first show of that tour. So it was very nerve-wracking, very I was still coming into my own. I must say, I'm not I don't have a background fronting, a heavy metal band. I don't have that kind of persona, as you can tell just listening to me talk. So so yeah, there was a lot of learning to sort of there was a lot of learning that was happening in just that first run of those two tours that ran back to back at the end of 2022. And then very shortly after that, we started writing Hyperviolence, and putting all those songs together, and that pretty much took up the bulk of 2023. We sort of were writing that whole album. So yeah.
So,
And it's just been crazy ever since. We've just been growing, and I've been learning so much since, and getting more and more comfortable with the role that I've sort of been given, since rejoining the band. So yeah.
well, so I mean, the first part about it is it's fantastic that even when Will step back and they reach out to you right away, it's they knew you, they have the chemistry with you, and you already had done vocals with them in the past. So why not see if there's anything that you can do or anything that they can amplify what they're looking for, what the band's direction is going forward, and then all of a sudden you come in, and you absolutely hit on that. And if you can learn how to scream, especially because there's the unclean vocals and a lot of love language, then that's
Mhm.
just going to amplify not only what the band's sound could be on the next album with you, but what could also become even more of a band's collective sound as a whole. Because there's going to be things, especially from what you brought up, maybe sometimes doing some more of the hip hop stuff coming from that background. How is that going to all interplay with some of the new music? How is that sound going to all interplay with the direction the band is going, with the identity and sound that you guys have already formed together? And it's allowing
Mm.
you to expand on that, but also still keep this connection in the roots that the band has had, because you were already there before. You already were there for a while, and now you're coming back in a different person, in like a different perspective, fronting the
Mm.
band, being lead vocalist. But at the exact same time, especially, we can get into this a little bit later, but you go through Hyperviolence, you go through the whole entire record, you see those unclean vocals on there. You see the prevalence of them on there, but you see also the cleaner style. You see the more flowing style vocals, and you see some of that hip hop inspiration come in there as well. So you're seeing a
Mm.
lot more of this well-rounded sound even on that end. And I think a lot of it has to do not only with your vocals, but the ability that you guys have in order to take what you do as vocalists, take what the rest of the band does, and mix it, especially with that electronic programming background and backbone
Mm.
that you guys have as Windwaker, that really gives the identity such a powerful and somewhat differentiated sound compared to so many other bands that are out there.
Yeah, I mean we're thinking about all of those things like that you're describing there when we're putting our music together. I call it a gumbo pot really because all five of us are we have such different musical interests. I mean, there's definitely an overlap there when it comes to say, yeah, heavy metal or rock music. but we come from such different backgrounds, and our primary interests in certain styles of music, it's so totally different. Like as you said, we've got Jesse, who's like, very influenced by the extreme and
Hmm.
blackened genres in metal, and that's where we've able to have drawn soundscapes like Trenches and The Wall, and even there's some of the other tracks that are on Hyperviolence, and some of the songs that didn't even make Hyperviolence as well. So we've got that to back that backing. We've got Connor and Chris, who are very much into more of their sort of like Billboard top
Hmm.
40 pop music sort of flavors. As you mentioned, yeah, I'm a hip hop head, and I grew up listening to punk and hardcore music, and R&B, and just a lot of different genres as well. I mean, I just have a love for music in general. Um, and yeah, Indy's the same. He loves a lot of like sort of the more traditional metalcore sounds that
Hmm.
have come out from the last 20 years. And yeah, we put it all together, and it just sounds like Windwaker. I mean, the hip hop thing definitely was touched on a bit on Love Language with Will's influence from it, and maybe that's come from him and I's connection together, prior to making Love Language, or whether that was just something that he naturally gravitated towards too. But I know that we'd had a lot of conversations about commercial hip hop versus underground hip hop and that sort of thing, and sort of seeing that in play for Love Language. But yeah, for me, it just comes from whatever our interests are in music, and how we can interact with each other's interests in music as well. So yeah.
And that's the beauty of it too, because would you want a band full of 5 people that have the exact same taste, the exact same interest in music? Because then, of course, you're gonna hit on the exact same like style and genre, but you're never gonna have the ability to really expand further because there's not gonna be a want there. There's not gonna be an influence there. It's really gonna push you. With the
No.
Wind Waker, it's like we know that there's like that heavy metalcore style backing and has the heavier, sometimes darker side to it because of the heavier instrumentation that's put in there. But you see a lot of that synth and electronic production and pop style really come to the forefront and be a lot more prevalent to have that more like electronic metalcore style mix work really well together. But then you kind of go back to some of the more poppy stuff, some more top 40 stuff. You see that in some of the catchier hooks. You see that in some of the flows
Mhm.
of the choruses. But I also had a huge like post-hardcore feel throughout some of these songs as well, just given the way of like the pre-chorus and chorus construction of the vocals. And specifically your tone too, because there was one vocalist that I was thinking about heavily when I started hearing you clean sing, especially some of these choruses. I'm like, if that isn't like a very, very powerful similarity to Matt Flood from Caskets, I don't know what is. Like, it sounded incredibly powerful. My connection was like, you know what? I listen to Caskets all the time. I've had Matt on the podcast like 3 times. I'm
Yeah.
like, no. This makes sense. I know you guys like had him in support for a run in I think it might have been
Yeah.
last year. I'm like, now this makes sense why they Caskets went out with you guys
Yeah,
for their first
absolutely.
Australian
No,
run.
Matt
It
is
just
the
made sense.
homie. Matt is absolutely the homie, and I think we have some crossover in terms of vocalists who we really respect. One in particular I know he talks a lot about is Charlie Simpson,
Hmm.
who's famous from Busted, but also his band Fight Star, who were very popular in sort of the 2010s, sort of 2000s. Who it's so funny, like they're such an underrated band too, because we talk about the popularity of a band like Sleep Token and that sound, but Fight Star were doing that 20 years ago, in a way. So yeah, I know that Matt is really influenced by a lot of similar, yeah, post-hardcore sounds. And like I said earlier, like I grew up from in punk music and hardcore, and yeah, I like a lot of that sort of sound with my vocals as well. So yeah, no, that's cool. I love that comparison. Matt's a great vocalist. He's such a sweetheart. So
I'll say let me expand on that too, because when I listen to Matt and I listen to him sing, it's especially from the post-hardcore side and the clean vocals that he has, when he gets super duper emotional in there. I mean, he wears the emotion on his sleeve, he wears the emotion in
mm,
his voice, and you can hear the roughness and the gruffness come out of it. And it sounds like, it's just it sounds like at times, it could be like, you're expressing some sort of pain or anguish in your vocals, but it's just, you're so heavily involved with the emotion in that standpoint. You're just blaring it out there unapologetically and showing every bit of that in the song. That's what Matt absolutely does perfect.
Yeah.
And hearing you on some of these songs as well, I'm like, I'm hearing that, I'm feeling that, and I'm feeling that emotion come through so powerfully that's why I'm relating it to Matt, where it's just,
Mm.
it's something where you listen to it and it's going to emotionally slap you in the face. And it's not going to be something that's going to be super duper aggressive, like super duper unclean vocals. It's not going to be Alex Terrible from Sorry Prevail just screaming in your face without a microphone. You can hear him throughout the whole entire venue.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it's going to just smack you, hit you as hard as possible. And that's the beauty of it too, because when you guys have some of those electronic pop style chorus backings and you have that put in there, it amplifies it in a completely different way, in a
Yeah.
completely different manner than anybody else is really going to do. But it's genuinely you guys, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned the emotional side of the music because yeah, like that is an influence that I have with a lot of my favorite vocalists, just being able to be entranced and carried away by just the sheer emotion that's being displayed through the voice. Because that's really what my goal is at the end of the day. I want to transport you musically speaking, to where maybe I'm trying to get across what I'm trying to express, right? Like, and I need it to move beyond just the lyrics. It needs to be an experience to listen to, and I'm really pleased with the way that Chris and I were able to get these performances out there. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that the emotions are translating, even onto the other side of the world. So yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, because it's like kind of, when it comes to the lyrics, it's like, it's poetry, basically. It's this beautiful
Yeah.
piece of poetry. But as a vocalist, when you're singing those words too, you have the ability to guide us through the emotion of the story that you're trying to tell. You have the ability to amplify that emotion, whether it's pure joy, pure happiness, pure goofiness, or something more serious. You're speaking more of it from a depressive tone,
Mm,
anguish, apathy, fear, anger, whatever it might be. But you have the
mm,
ability to amplify that with your overall tone, inflection, voice, whatever you can think of. And by doing that, it allows us from the other side of the world even to listen to the music, to fully connect with it, and then not only see how your vocals really amplify the message, amplify the emotion that we're feeling of the story you're trying to tell, but the overall backing then when it comes to the bass, the guitars, the drums, the programming, the synths,
mm,
everything it puts in there, it all creates that sonic emotional guide to the story you're trying to tell. And when you can
mm.
absolutely hit on that in a very unique way that is your own, that is where those bands end up soaring massively. Again, you just brought up Sleep Token. Sleep Token's absolutely doing that right now. I mean, I
Mm.
saw them middle of May, and they played a venue two nights in a row. They used about 3,600 capacity. It was in Chicago, Illinois, and that sold out within the first before the general sale even went on. It sold out in the pre-sale in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is like, if
Yeah,
that's
they
going to connect with people, people are going to go towards it. And listening to what you guys did with Hyperviolence, listen to your vocals, listen to everything. Again, it's a little bit different than Love Language with some of the influence
mm,
that come through here, but the genuineness of what you guys are able to do by mixing those vocals and mixing that more electronic metalcore style with everything else you guys have around there still is genuine, still fits.
yeah, and that was what we were trying to that was the balance we were trying to find with making this album really is it's like what do we take that we've learnt from Love Language, what makes that core sound so Windwaker, while also still trying to be authentic and do something new, especially with a new lineup, and new personnel that, have their own influences. Um, yeah, it's still doing it authentic to us. And that's kind of the thing we drew with even just like regards to the artwork, like the in sort of style, it's reminiscent of Love Language,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there was a lot of things from Love Language that when we went to discuss what we wanted to achieve with Hyperviolence or Untitled album at that point in time, it was, we want to make a more focused listening experience for not just us, not just ourselves, but for all listeners, and also trying to showcase the maturity of our songwriting since then, because I feel like with love language, as great and as chaotic as it is, and genre bending and all that sort of stuff, it does bounce around like in all directions quite chaotically. And that works for a certain type of listener. I think we've found fans that will enjoy that aspect of it. But I think that there's also people that maybe got turned off from that and were just like, there's nothing for me to hold on to here. I'm just in the middle of a bunch of tennis balls just like bouncing around me. And so this was more of an attempt to kind of focus that energy a little bit more, be a little bit more considerate at how we're directing it, while still being able to deliver on all that genre bending by delivering on that gumbo pot of influences and experimentation. Because even though we might be inspired by pop music, I think there's still an element of experimentation that's happening
Mhm.
in our music and in the exploration of this album. So yeah, there was definitely a considered thing when we from the get-go of like, okay, how do we tie this in while also making it a completely new experience?
It's definitely tied in because you guys still do bounce around with all those different genres, all those different
Yeah.
styles every now and again. But where it gets a little bit more focused in is not only when it comes to just there's some pieces that aren't bouncing around as rapidly, but when it
Mm.
comes to the overall track list and how you listed these songs from top to bottom, because you go through it and like the first half of the album really has more of that, style that we saw in Love Language, a little more of the heavier style, more programmatic, a little more of the metalcore side of things. We have a little bit more of the post-hardcore style choruses in there, but we get more to the second half, especially towards the back end. That's when we see a little bit more of that hip hop influence really come in, but it's a little bit more consistent on that front. So we see a completely different side of Windwaker, but it also makes sense in the overall flow of the listening experience because we're not having it just sprinkled in every now and again and then having to
Mm.
pop up randomly like a whack-a-mole where it's just like, it's happening again. And you got to hit it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a consistent experience of that consistent change, but you're not going to be thrown off by it so much to the point where, like you said, there's tennis balls room, you're trying to grab onto one, and when you finally grab onto one hits you in the face and one hits you in the nuts, and you don't know what the hell happened to you.
Exactly, yeah. And that was something like the track listing in particular, that experience of listening through the album was what I'm sort of, or what we were talking about was like, you know, for example, on Love Language, and I can't remember the the order off the top of my head, but I remember it's like it goes from like glow into trenches, then into like silver lining, then
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like it's just like you've gone from a really kind of down tempo kind of electronic song to then borderline black metal, extreme metal, and then it goes into like this spoken word interlude, and that, you know what I mean? It's just like from going from song to song was like an interesting experience. Whereas this, we wanted to kind of make this a bit more of an experience. It still can bounce around everywhere, but the journey from song to song was a lot more considered, I guess, this time around.
Yeah, and it's going to prove on the listening experience when people really take hold of this record. Now, specifically when it comes to a couple of songs, I want to know what it was like, writing these songs and creating them, especially by having some of that more hip hop, inclusion in there, because there's a couple of songs in there, especially later on in the album. I just got to make sure I get the names right of them. Like once you get to Vertigo, you got Hypnotize Venom, Tabula Rules in there. Like they have some of that hip hop inspiration in there as well. So you're really going to hear that come through. So what was it like putting that together with the guys and really formulating that onto this album?
Yeah. So obviously when we were making this, like we didn't the order of the track listing doesn't necessarily dictate when in the process we were making it, but Tabula Rasa and what were the other ones? Break the Rules, Venom, and I think Villain. Those were the first four songs that we had started putting together on the first writing week in, I think it was January 2022. And so there was already immediately like the hip hop influence was something that I could grab onto, and that could be something that felt uniquely me. Particularly at a time where I wasn't necessarily feeling the most confident stepping in for someone that was beloved before me. You know what I mean? Like there was certain expectations and certain shoes to fill at that point, and I was still finding my way with that, right? So the hip hop influence and the raps that I got to sort of display and write for those songs that you mentioned, were something that were sort of almost like a lifeboat of like, okay, this is something I can tangibly say is mine, and there's nobody else that is doing that, at least in the sort of genre and the way that we do it. Obviously, there's a lot of rap and rock,
Hmm.
crossovers that have happened through the decades. No denying that, but just in the way that I guess I've approached it, and this also comes into like the topic of like my journey with finding screams. This hyperviolence is in a way like a time capsule of my journey learning how to scream basically from scratch because, yeah, I didn't really do a whole lot of that before rejoining. So, um, when I was like writing a lot of the screams, I was coming at it from the approach of a rap flow in a way. So, I've used this as an example before, but like the second verse of Sirens, like when you go back to that and you take away the actual performance of it being a scream, I've approached it from a rap flow, I don't believe in me. Sometimes I feel defeat left out to bleed in the street. It's kind of got this kind of bounce to it. And that was what I was using a lot to like those sort of flows and that sort of phrasing was what I was using to dictate the scream parts. So it was cool to be able to kind of pull that back a little bit and just perform things as raps as well. The boys had also knew me back when I was doing a lot of that stuff too. So I think they knew that I had that in me to kind and it was wanting to come out through their music just through past explorations of the genre blending from Love Language. So um yeah, so with those songs, they kind of happened a little bit early on, but it actually kind of the hip hop persona as well kind of ties into some of the themes on the album, as well, which had started to take a lot of form for me, maybe sort of a third of the way into the process. We'd
Hmm.
had a bucket of songs, but seemingly I hadn't actually like tied them together with the concept. And it wasn't in sort of a few months in that I was thinking about my identity coming into this new thing. I was coming into it, you know, thinking about what expectations were being placed on me that I had no control in, or had no control of, I should say, as well as, trying to find this identity within myself and within the role that was given me. So it was like the songs are in a way, hyperviolence in a way is about sort of two personalities or two personas that are kind of within the one person that are kind of grinding against each other. They're at odds, they're battling. And if you go back and listen to a lot of the lyrics in all of the songs, there is in some shape or form either a conflict happening between those personalities, the flashy personality versus the sort of more subdued, introverted kind of personality, something that's a bit more gentle. And either a song is like the anthem for one of these personalities, or the songs are about the clash that's happening between the two, and what that kind of does to your brain and in terms of how you behave and think about who you are as a person navigating life. So yeah, that was kind of also a part of like putting that in there as well.
But
Being authentic, but also seeing there's like a persona there as well.
But I mean, that persona overall fits, especially when it comes to you guys with how you blend so many different genres and how you go about it with so many different ideas. And now adding, you in here with this album full time with some of those hip hop flows, because you have those two different sides, those two different personas. One maybe a little more calm, subdued, one that's more out there and aggressive. And you're going to have
Mm,
the songs that are going to reflect on both of those. And that's just like life. There's going to be times where we are pretty content. We're okay with things and we're really not pushing necessarily as hard just because we're kind of like, life is good. Let's relax a little bit and let's just enjoy. So we're going to be a little bit more drawn, pulled back in terms of energy.
mm,
But then there's be those times where, stress is happening, where you're trying to make those gigantic moves in life, or you need to get out of a situation. You're really trying to pressure it. So you're going to have more of that aggressive tone to it, more of that
yeah.
aggressive energy. But then you're going to have times where, you got to figure out what's the situation is. How is this all going to play together? That's when you have those
Hmm.
two personas clash together. And that's what's the beauty, especially when you come to blending genres, because you're able to amplify that and show so many of those different emotions throughout that. So when it comes to having something like you talk about with Sirens, where you have the unclean vocal piece, but it's built in a very similar pattern of hip hop with how the bounce is to it. You're showing that aggressiveness, you're showing that overall tone, but you're showing it in a way with that overall flow that again relates back to some of the other things that you're already talking about that you're used to. So you're showing a lot more of that coming together, and you're able to express so many different emotions because you're able to take different ideas, different sounds, figure out how they work together from sound, pattern, flow, and present them to us in a way that really brings forward the message you're trying to bring forward in every single song and drive us to the emotion that you're trying to get us to.
Absolutely. I think I think you've just hit the nail on the head there with that description. We were trying to do all of that.
I was
When we
gonna
were
say,
making this
every time
record.
I hear you hit the nail on the head, I need to have like a board here with the nail on it and a hammer. I just can go like this and just
Yeah.
keep. Only two problems. One, I might have had like 3 different boards up here, and I'd probably make my landlord very, very unhappy because she keeps hearing pounding, and the fact there'd be like multiple different like 2x4s nailed to the wall already.
Yeah. No, we need a Monster Energy subscription if we're gonna start doing, destruction to walls and stuff.
You know, maybe I should redo this instead of doing the episodes and recording this from inside my house. Maybe go to like one of those rage rooms where you're able to start doing this stuff and just start smashing everything into pieces and just start, nailing boards to walls every time I do something good. That would be one hell of a podcast concept. It's like to interview artists while also completely raging and breaking stuff at the same time.
I could work. I reckon that could work for an episode. I don't know about a full podcast, but definitely it seems like a good episode idea.
Well, I mean, it would have worked for this episode because we're talking, 2 different personas. Okay, we're having this deep conversation about the music, about your creation, about your art. And then all of a sudden, now we're getting to the heavier stuff with the music, and we're just going to go smash things while listening to songs like Sirens and Fractured State of Mind.
It'd be pretty cathartic, honestly. I'd love to. Maybe we can do that when I'm over in the States. We can do that.
I was gonna say that wouldn't be a bad idea. What if you guys just came over to the States, went to a rage room on one of your days off, played the album while you guys were in the rage room, and just saw who broke more stuff while playing the album?
Yeah, we go for the high scores.
It depends on like how you would calculate the high scores though. Who broke the most amount of stuff? Who had the coolest amount of smashes?
What the most valuable thing is that you smashed, or like how much property value that you've destroyed. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know, all I would say is for me, it's, put me in a set, like Kevin set it up, like, you're in an office, you have the cubicle and everything, have a couple of computers, maybe if they're still working, turn them on and have the screen or the background on the screen, have it be a picture of, my old boss or something like that. And then we can just go and just take a sledgehammer to it.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Only if I can listen to the wall while we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll perform the wall with the wall as we do it.
Oh, okay. Okay, can we actually make this happen? Because that sounds like a fantastic idea.
I might be overpromising, but whereabouts are you based in? Because
So
we might be able to make it work.
I'll say so. I am in the city of Milwaukee, which I know you guys are playing with North Lane in Chicago on July 1st, and that's the show I'm going to because Milwaukee's about 90 miles north of Chicago.
Yeah, it's still in that Midwest bracket, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
cool. Yeah, awesome. No, we'll make it happen. Chicago. I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, let's make it happen. But now, even going beyond the album, again, you guys are going to be coming over to the U.S. for the first time with, I know North Lane is on there. I remember Thornhill is on here there. I cannot remember the other band, though, and now it's killing me.
Invent Animate.
Oh, man. I knew I was going to forget something. I'm just like, I knew it was one of them. Invent Animate. Ugh. Okay, now I'm starting to get mad at myself.
It's a stacked lineup. I'm very pleased that this is going to be the first time we're over there and this is the lineup. So yeah, no, very cool.
And like I said, even like at the beginning of this, the day before we shot this, I saw the post online. You guys got approved for your visas. So you guys are coming over and super excited about that. So right before you come over, what's your anticipation going into this North American tour? Again, first time come over to the States. What are you looking forward to, man?
Well, I'm seriously looking forward to getting to indulge in some of the fine cuisines and foods and some of the not so fine foods that America has to offer. Definitely very keen for that. We're going to be touring the country or the continent in an RV. Which will be very interesting. But so that'll be our first experience sort of doing the van traveling with beds and, a kitchen and stuff like that. some of these like spots that, as we've talked, um, love and passion that I have and I have had for most of my life. Getting to visit some of these regions where it's so rich with that culture. Getting to go to Chicago, getting to go to New York, getting to go to the West Coast, going to Atlanta, Georgia,
Mhm.
and Texas, and all these places that I've grown up observing through different, media, and actually getting to sort of see it for the first time, just in person, in the flesh. I feel like it's going to be quite a magical experience for me anyway.
Well, I hope it's going to be an absolute magical journey for you guys. Especially when it comes to the U.S. too. It's when you talk about introducing yourself to all the crazy cuisine that's here, some of the good stuff and some of the not so good stuff. You go to different areas of the country, you go to these different cities, and what the specialty for that cuisine is going to be completely different based on where you go.
Yeah.
If you're in the West Coast, if you're in LA, it's going to be so much different than Chicago. It's going to be different from New York. It's going to be different than when you're down south in Atlanta, you're in Texas. There's going to be so many different things that you can try that are going to be from the places in the US where they make them the best. So you really get a chance to, in not only indulge, but just experience all of that. But even as a fan of music as well, going on the West Coast, especially, you think about the hip hop battles in the 90s from West Coast to East
Mm.
Coast, you're going to be able to see all that. You're going to be able to see what's going on in that world in Chicago as well, how big of a scene that's becoming in the Georgia area, seeing again
Mm.
what tech's all about, seeing if you're going to Florida, how crazy Florida ends up getting, what the
Right.
Midwest, not only outside of Chicago, what the Midwest is like with rock and metal. There's so many different things you guys are gonna be able to experience for the first time and really get to see that and see how your music gets to connect with so many other people here that might not necessarily know who you are, but are showing up because they want to see Invent Animate, they want to see Northlane, and they get a chance to see what you guys bring to the table. And if you guys start out with something heavy, they're going to be into it right away. I already
Hell
can tell
yeah.
that. Of course, I got to feel
That's
you're going to
good.
sprinkle in like one of the more hip hop inspired tracks here and there, which I absolutely would be a fan of. But if you guys start out with something heavy, especially with the lineup that you guys have coming with you,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely gonna be something that's gonna get fans into it right from the jump.
That's good to know. I think that's also been like what you're sort of getting at there is another thing that we're super excited about. I mean, we've been waiting to come over to the States for, a number of years now. And we've only really gotten to experience the excitement through, comment sections and, more online interactions and looking at, statistics and things like that. Um, I think we're just excited to actually finally have the chance to come over and experience what our music, how our music
Mhm.
translates to an American audience, because I think we don't even know what we're in for really. Like, I think that we know that it's going to be positive, because I think it's something like, if we're just using Spotify statistics alone, I think for every one Australian fan, there's about 8 or 9 American. So that's amazing, and I would love to, getting to see that and how we translate to an American audience is something that's just like, it's very exciting. And yeah, I don't even know what to expect, but I'm definitely thinking you would take your tip of opening with something heavy to just kind of get the vibe right, and then we can show off the rest of our sound.
Not only get the vibe right, but get the crowd moving, because I can tell you for that
Mm,
Chicago show, if you start with something heavy, the crowd
hmm.
will start moving
Yep.
because me and my friends will be the ones to make it start moving.
Yeah, cool, 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 cool.
I
Yeah,
can I can guarantee that one.
excellent. All right. Well, I'll be sure to promise this will be for you. We're gonna open with something heavy for you. And we'll be
Yes.
like, this one's for Kevin. And then yeah, we'll get
And
into it.
I'll be in the middle of the pit and be like, oh, that's me. All of a sudden it gets in heavy. Gotta hit somebody. Ah!
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
I'll just find my buddy Shane and just smack him as hard as I can, and he'll get it. He'll understand.
Yeah,
I'll probably tell
you
him
get
before
it.
on the way down there, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna hit you as hard as possible right away, and that's just how we're gonna start this." Okay, cool.
Hey, amazing.
All right, Liam. I know. Again, you got more interviews going on today, but I've got two
Mhm.
more questions for you before we wrap this up. And the first thing is, right now, especially as we're recording this, there are 5 singles for Hyperviolence that are out right now. Now, everyone has a chance to listen. Everyone's got a chance to dive deep into them. And I would always ask, like, what is your favorite song off the record? But that's like picking your favorite kid. And I don't want you to
Mm.
do that. So I'm gonna phrase it like this. Which song that has not been released off of Hyperviolence are you most excited for people to hear?
Oh, okay. I can somewhat answer this from the frame of like these are my well these
Okay.
there's two songs that are like my favorite and it sort of changes depending on the day. Ooh. Did I
Ooh.
just do that? Did I do the balloons thing?
I don't
No
know, but
one's
it
gonna
was
be able to see
awesome.
that because I didn't even touch anything. Anyway,
Yeah, you're going like
there's
this, and all of a sudden it came up.
there's two songs that changes day by day, and those are actually back to back. These are actually no, they're not. Hypnotize and Tabula Rasa. Those are my two favorite songs from Hyperviolence, and I think because they showcase a certain vibe and a certain space, and they touch on sort of the clean vocals, the rapping vocals, and the screaming, all really well. I think so. Those are my two favorite songs that I'm most excited for people to hear.
Well, I would have to agree with you, especially on Tabula Rasa, because that was out of the songs that have not been released yet. I'm gonna say that was my favorite one out of all of those.
Excellent. Yeah.
So definitely, when this gets released, make sure you listen to the whole entire album, though. But
Yeah.
once you get to that one, once you get Tabula, ooh, you're gonna have some fun. Trust me.
Yeah, that's a fun song. I feel like that song delivers on what we do the best in a way. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like we execute upon the things that we do. I feel like we do them the best on that song.
Oh, absolutely. I think you guys like, especially with what you're bringing out with the hip hop and style influence and really trying to bring that forward and bring that into the sound that Windwaker is. I think
Mm,
that's the one you guys did it the best on. Of course, I did like the
amazing.
other ones, but I think that is the one that really encapsulates like the top tier
Yeah.
quality of what you were going for.
Yeah, I think we were that was one of the first songs we like started. I think it actually even musically had started before I'd rejoined, and we knew that once we'd gotten that chorus section down, it felt like a good sign moving forward of like finishing the rest of it. We're like, this is definitely got to be released at some point during the campaign. So,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. It's going to be one of those nice kind of moments.
Mm.
And Liam, I got one more question before we wrap this up. It's
Yeah,
something I like to
cool.
ask every single artist I bring on. I've done this the past like 9 months, and it's a way for us to get to know more new music and for you to share more of the music you love. So I'm going to limit this to 3. Can you
Mhm.
name me 3 bands or artists that you absolutely love right now that you would love to see more people get into?
Yeah. I would say I'm just looking at my Spotify library really
You and
just
60% of the people
casually.
I ask this question to have to look at their Spotify library. So you are in the norm with this.
Yeah, cool. All right. I'll try and give like a bit of a mixed bag, I'd say.
Okay.
So as far as like the emo sort of more shoegaze kind of inspired stuff, there's a band called Soft Cult, who I think more people need to listen to. I think they are fairly popular. They're from Canada. But I think they're just an amazing band. I would say the other one that in a similar vein, I love a band called Fontaines DC. They're from Ireland, kind of more in that post-punk sort of Joy Division-esque kind of sound. And who else? This is new music we're talking,
Mhm.
right? We're
Yeah.
kind of
Whatever.
keeping it strictly new music.
New music or
Uh,
bands you want to get more exposure onto.
Um, all right. I'll keep it heavy. My current favorite heavy band at the moment is Throne.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah, Throne's definitely one of my favorites. And if you know what, I'm gonna replace the middle one, and I'll say there's a band called Heaven's Gate from Australia. Um, you should listen. They've just put out a song as time of recording called Rat King. That's their newest single. Go and do yourself a favor if you like heavy stuff. If you like the sort of almost diss track-esque kind
Mhm.
of energy. Yeah, really great song.
And I know I've
Great
heard
band.
Heaven's Gate before as a suggestion. It might have been from Jake from In Heart's Wake. So
Hmm.
definitely one to go check out. And I was gonna throw in there too because well, we mentioned them earlier because of your vocals, but everyone go check out Caskets too.
Oh, Caskets too. Yeah, yeah. Go check out Caskets. They put out an album last year. It's great. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so then maybe we can get a Windwaker Caskets tour over the U.S. instead of, just having it be in Australia. Let's hope. Let's hope.
I think Matt would love that. I think Matt would try and make that happen.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna
then it's
throw him
like,
under
well,
the
would
bus
anybody
there.
in the U.S. support that? I'll just be like, Matt, come on. I got you on this, man.
Actually, they just did a tour in Australia with an American band called the Home Team, and I think
Yep.
they would round out a good three band bill.
Caskets,
One from the UK, one from the US, and one
Yeah,
from Australia.
Caskets, Windwaker, and the Home Team. That would work. That would really work. I'm not going to lie.
That'd be
That would
really
really
cool.
work.
Mm.
That would be
So-
awesome. Well, Liam, I want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to close out this podcast with 3 things. First things first. Hyperviolence comes out on July 12th, everybody. So you're not going to want to miss out on it. Trust me. And the band is going to be touring the U.S. in the summer throughout most of July with Northlane, Invent Animate, and Thornhill. So this is what you're going to do. Go to the description of the podcast where it says Find Windwaker Online. Links and labels for their social media so you can follow along with them. Links for YouTube so you can watch YouTube videos. Links for where you can get those tickets for the Northlane tour, where you can buy some merch, where you can pre-save the album, and where you can pre-order, and when it's out, where you can listen to it in its entirety. So I'm doing all the hard work for you. It's all down there. So go and follow along with Windwaker if you haven't already, because you definitely should. Now it's time for number 2, Liam. Every guest on the podcast, I join the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise. You absolutely hit on this. I made the same promise to Indy back in 2022, and I'm hoping we're going to be able to make this happen this year in 2024. So when I can see you perform live for the first time, which will be the Chicago date of this Northlane tour, at some point in time, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I will look for you. I will find you. I will come and say hi, and first round's on me.
Oh, excellent. What's your drink? What's your poison? What do you drink? You beer guy?
I'm typically a huge beer drinker, but if I have to drink hard alcohol or hard liquor, I'm weird. I'll go either tequila or gin.
Oh, awesome. Fellow gin man myself. So
yes.
Gin or beer? I'm a happy camper. So
alrighty,
I'm just looking at the date.
Yeah, it should be the Chicago day, I believe, is July 1st, if I'm correct.
July 1st. Excellent. All right. Yes, House of Blues. Let's go.
Yep.
I know where we go.
Perfect. We'll figure it out from there. We'll make it happen. Well, Liam, and now it's time for number 3. Bring this podcast conclusion. I cannot end this by saying goodbye because I had Indy on last time. I have you on this time. I would love to have you and Indy possibly once again back in the podcast again in the future. These are great conversations. I absolutely love them. Love listening to Windwaker. So I know this is going to happen at some point. And I made you a promise. I already got the ticket to see you guys play live. So we got to make this promise happen. So this is not goodbye, Liam. This ain't goodbye, man.
First round on you, second round on me when we're there in Chicago, and you'll definitely have us both on. Especially after the tour, we can talk about all our US experiences, our first time experiences, and we can go from there. That sounds good.
We'll get the Indian Liam food review.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, really quickly, the Indy and I have made a pact for the US. Just as a way of trying not to gain so much weight from the food over there, we've made a pact that we're going to split all of our food in half. Let's see how long that lasts.
Well, I mean, the portions get pretty big, so I think you'll be able to pull it off.
You reckon I'll be able to we can eat a lot of food though, and he'll egg me on to eat lots of food, and I'll egg him on, and we never like to waste food, so we'll probably end up eating it all anyway.
Okay, yeah, then you're right.
Yeah, we're screwed.
Yep. Well, good luck, guys. And then, of course, like I said, this is not goodbye, man. This is. I'll see you later.
This is just merely see you later. Thanks for having me.
Ooh, well, folks, this is my interview with Liam from the band Windwaker, and now it's time for Kevin's final thought. So let me final thought this one for you. I knew that Windwaker was definitely going to be putting something out there that was going to be a little bit more experimental, a little bit more out there. After we heard with Love Language. I really like Love Language in 2022. I love the differentiation they went with. I love how it bounced all over the place. And I loved how they always tried something different. On Hyperviolence, right away from the jump with Infinity, then you go into the singles like Sirens, Fractured State of Mind, Break the Rules, The Wall, and Villain. You really get a lot of that to come to the forefront. Get Out really has that overall feel of that post-hardcore song. And that is where I think you really can get that connection between Liam and Matt Flood of Caskets. And you can really hear the emotional, break through the voice comes through. But then you get to Haunting Me, Vertigo, Hypnotized, Venom, and Tabula. Now that's where the hip hop style comes through a little bit more, and it's really consistent. It really shows how the mix can really work out together. Once you get to Tabula, though, I think that is where the hip hop overall influence is the best used. And even though, Liam said that was the one that he's super excited for people to hear, so get ready for that one as well. What I like what Windwaker has done is they have continued to evolve on their own sound, and they have a sound that invites collaboration. It invites experimentation. And by doing that, you're seeing the growth that they have been able to have. After Love Language, I'm like, when is this band going to come to the US? Well, they've toured throughout Australia. They had a headlining run last year with Caskets in support. And now this year, they're going back. They're going to the US for the first time, which is absolutely incredible. Supporting North Lane, Animate, and Thornhill. And if they open with something heavy, man, hope that was because of me, so thank me for that. Okay, I got to give me some random credit for that. But be sure to check out HYPERVIOLENCE. Be sure to check out Windwaker. Go subscribe to the podcast below. Be sure to click on every single link that's there for their social media. Follow them there. Be sure to get some merch. Get tickets for the tour with North Lane if you're in the US. And, of course, pre-save HYPERVIOLENCE. Be sure to pre-order a physical copy of it. Or if it's out already by the time you listen to this, stream and listen to the hell out of it. Also, be sure to follow us, the Chord Progression Podcast. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Link for the podcast below. Be sure to hit subscribe right down here on YouTube. New episodes of the podcast every single Tuesday and Thursday, and our reaction videos every single Friday as well. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit the follow button. You also get every single episode every single Tuesday and Thursday as well. And hit the like button on these episodes. Helps push in the algorithm and helps support more great music. So thank you, Liam, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you at the show July 1st in Chicago, House of Blues. Don't miss out. And on that note, that's going to be it from me, guys. Thank you very much for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. That's a big, healthy, and hearty. See y'all.